Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, December 12th, 2019 regular session of the Xenia City Council. We're ready to begin this evening, and we will start with an invocation led by Councilman Will Urschel, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Mays. If you would rise with me, please, for the invocation and pledge.
All right, let's go ahead and pray. Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you for this Christmas season, just a time to remember that you provided a substitute for us when we desperately needed one. And God, we thank you for that. Father, thank you for our time tonight together as a council and the folks out here in our audience. And God, help us to steward well our time tonight and the issues before us. God, help us to remember the broad spectrum of folks that we represent here in our city and represent the needs of our community well tonight. Thank you for our city workers and the staff here have gotten things prepared for us tonight. And God, help us to listen well to the things that are being brought and decide with wisdom on that. And we thank you for your graciousness to us. Praise things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Councilman Urschel and Mayor Mays. May I have roll call, please?
Vice President Wallace, Councilman Urschel,
Here.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Here.
Councilman Smith,
Here.
Councilman Dean,
Here.
Mayor Mays,
Here.
President Engel.
Here.
Mr. President, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Vice President Wallace due to a travel and work commitment.
Thank you very much. Have a motion to excuse the Vice President. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lauterbach. Any discussion or question on the motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilman Urschel,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. This time we have opportunity for approval of minutes, please, for our November 26, 2019 regular session.
Motion, please.
Moved by Councilman Smith. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lauterbach. Any discussion or question on the minutes, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilman Urschel,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean. Aye. Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. At this time, we have no special presentations, so we'll move on to audience comments. Anyone wishing to address the Xenia City Council, please feel free to do so. Step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 3 to 4 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Howard Horseman, 2428 Ridge Road, Xenia, Ohio. I'm here to talk to you about one of the new business items on the agenda, the ordinance 2019-26, the amending the Timber Ridge PUD to allow a nursing home. I've sent the council members an email, so I won't bore you by reading it. I'll just hit the highlights. I've been a resident of the neighborhood for 10 years. I'm not a long-term resident like some of the other folks, but my wife and I, Laura, we bought in because we liked the neighborhood, in part because of the PUD that was for planned some 80, 90 houses in that neighborhood. And it's been an attractive neighborhood. I know there's not been a lot of construction in the past 10 years or 20 years maybe, but my understanding is not because of lack of interest in the neighborhood. It's just the original developer was forced to stop for reasons not really clear to me, but I know there is, in the developed part of the neighborhood that I live in, there is a lot of interest. We get, anytime a house comes up for sale, or we get a lot of traffic through the neighborhood. I'm recently retired myself, so I've had the opportunity to spend more time in the neighborhood, and a couple months ago I started noticing an increase in traffic. And what's going on? Then somebody stopped and asked if they could walk through my backyard to look at one of the vacant lots, and because it was for sale, which is that was news to me. I was actually keeping an eye on the lot next to me. But it turned out that they had the wrong lot, but there's another lot in the neighborhood for sale. But it just, it's an indication, whenever there's a real house for sale in that area or even a lot, it generates a lot of interest. It seems to me that the city should encourage further development according with the existing PUD. Second point I'd like to make is the business case analysis. Yeah, I can't really speak to whether or not Xenia needs another retirement or nursing facility, but we have several in operation already that aren't in at full capacity and with the attendant strain on city services. The city's own analysis indicates that changing the PUD to allow a nursing home in the neighborhood gives a marginal increase once it's fully built out, but that's assuming that the remaining lots would be developed with single-family homes. And it seems to me that if we change the PUD to allow commercial development or high residential neighborhood, it's going to decrease the interest in the neighborhood, and I'm not sure it would ever be completely developed. So I'm here to encourage you to not support the change to the PUD. So, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to, our next one coming right up.
Good evening, Mr. President, Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, Xenia City Council. My name is Thomas Scrivens. By the grace of God, I still reside at 725 Lexington Avenue here in the city. Mr. President, two things that I have on my mind tonight. First thing, I'd like to congratulate you, Councilman Urschel, and Councilman Dale Lauterbach for your tremendous heart that you gave to the city of Xenia in service to the city of Xenia on this council. People don't know, I know. You guys have worked hard in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I just want to tell you, from being a citizen, I thank you for what you've done. And it doesn't go unnoticed. Also, Mr. President, I'd like to bring to the awareness of the council that our public service workers did a yeoman's job last week. And the person that they had saw on the driveway bleeding from a head injury he had sustained was my next door neighbor. I got word today that my next door neighbor is now deceased. So we want to say thank you to the guys who saw him. We don't know how long he languished on his driveway in the cold, sustaining a severe head injury where he had to have neurosurgery, but he didn't make it. So his name is Eddie Scott. He's also on the board of directors of the Xenia Athletic Hall of Fame. We'll miss him there. And he's a retired postal worker. He used to wake up 3:30 and 4 o'clock to pass people's mail for years and years and years and years. Put 3 daughters through college and a son through the Coast Guard. And just want to express my sincere condolence to his family and to all of our neighbors who we all have a loss. Also, Mr. President, Mr. Paul Coates, former postmaster here in the city of Xenia, resides in Wilberforce, just recently passed away this week. So this week I've lost a friend and a neighbor. So I just want you to know that in this season of joy, that there is some sadness, but we will overcome the sadness with joy. And finally, I'd like to congratulate Miss Rebecca Dean and Mr. Cody Branham on their election to this august body. I hope they know what they're getting into. It'll be something for them to digest and chew in their first year. I know, because I had to digest and chew. So with that, Mr. President, I thank you. I thank you guys again for your service. And it's a pat on the back from those of us who you served. And we appreciate you. And God bless you. And I hope you have longevity. And maybe you can come back on council in a couple of years. Who knows? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to address the Xenia City Council this evening, please? Seeing no one else come forward, we will move on to old business. Singular item under old business this evening is ordinance 2019-23, a second reading, vacating a section of a 6-foot wide public alley right-of-way parallel to Stelton Road and abutting lots 1, 2, and 3 of the Miller Addition subdivision and Lot 1A of the Sauls Addition replat, originally introduced by Councilman Dean.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for passage.
Move for passage, second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lauterbach. Any discussion or question on the motion, please?
The mayor and I will need to recuse ourselves as we're part of Manual Baptist Church, and that's part of the parcels adjacent to that. So we'll be recusing ourselves from discussion and voting.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comment, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilman Urschel.
Recuse?
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean. Aye. Mayor Mays.
Recused?
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We have no public hearing scheduled this evening, so we'll move on to new business. First item is Resolution 2019-MM, an emergency, authorizing a then and now payment of $6,405 to Dixon Engineering and Company for warranty water tower inspections and declaring an emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. As indicated, staff is requesting council approval of this emergency resolution to Dixon Engineering in the amount indicated. The city contracted with Dixon Engineering to perform water tower painting inspections. If you recall, we had the West 2nd Street and the Patton Street tanks done last year, and this was a component of the overall contract for the warranty inspection for completion of these inspections. The work had to be done within 12 months. We had included this dollar amount in our budget. Unfortunately, the PO was closed inadvertently prior to the work being completed and paid out. As a result of the untimely closure of the purchase order, the then and now statement is required. Approval by council of that then and now statement. Sufficient funds are available in the budget. This is just one of those housekeeping things due to a minor error in closing that PO a little too early. So we request council move for an emergency passage of the resolution this evening to take care of the then and now.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency?
So moved as an emergency.
Thank you. Moved by Councilman Lauterbach. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Smith. Any discussion or question on the motion, please? Thank you to city staff for running these two water towers through the process. Excellent work and much needed in terms of keeping our infrastructure up to date and in safe condition. Roll call, please.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean. Aye. Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is ordinance 2019-25, seeking an introduction, amending the official zoning map of the city of Xenia, Ohio to rezone 65 South Progress Drive from PUD Planned Unit Development to B-1 Convenience Business District. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. Ordinance 2019-25 seeks a rezoning and is related to recent council action when you agreed to vacate a small unused portion of right-of-way for Juden Drive. Excuse me. This right-of-way has been consolidated with additional properties now owned at the site, and the applicant is seeking a rezoning now with the intent of broadening the options and marketability for commercial usage at that particular property site. The current Progress Center PUD zoning limits the property's permitted uses to those in the O1 office district. B1 zoning would facilitate restaurants, retail sales, and some other services as indicated in the agenda report. The remainder of the PUD along the South Progress Drive and part of Harner Drive would remain in place. Upon staff's review, we find that the requested zoning meets all of our land development codes zoning amendment approval criteria as stipulated in section 1220.03E. The proposed rezoning is consistent with X-Plan and in line with the market trends we've observed in the Progress Drive area, where there is certainly increasing demand. Given these factors, we see no reason why the rezoning should not be approved. As a net result, the city, we believe, would have its economic best interest served. So after introduction this evening, we would recommend the required public hearing on December 30th and ultimately approval by council.
Thank you very much. Can I have an introduction from one of my colleagues, please? I'll introduce then. Thank you. Next item is ordinance 2019-26, also seeking an introduction, amending the Timber Ridge PUD by allowing a nursing home on 13.5 undeveloped acres by allowing allowing single-family residential development on 21.25 undeveloped acres and existing platted lots, and by adopting certain additional development standards. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. A number of thoughts on this evening, so please bear with me. The subject property for this item is a 37.265 acre tract of undeveloped land that represents the planned future phase of the Timber Ridge subdivision, which is a single-family residential subdivision just off of US 8 and US 68 on the northern reach of the city. The prospective purchaser of the site desires to construct a nursing home on the southern 13.5 acres of the subject parcel, leaving the remaining acreage between the nursing home and the existing Timber Ridge subdivision available for single-family residential development. Presently, the Timber Ridge PUD does restrict future usage of the subject parcel to single-family residential, with the potential of 61 planned units in addition to the existing platted lots. The proposed PUD change would involve a 99-bed nursing home, and 30 single-family home lots would remain. Such a development plan would represent an increase in residential density, which requires approval by both the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as City Council per section 1220.04H4A3, if you follow that, of the city's land development code. A similar PUD change was proposed for the site in 1997 to allow a 90-bed assisted living facility on the 5 acres while leaving the remainder of the PUD zone for single-family development. At that time, both Planning and Zoning and City Council declined the change. Per city policy, such changes as suggested with the current request are subject to review via an impact analysis that the city performs, through which we try to evaluate for council the quantitative as well as qualitative effects of such development decisions. The staff report included with this item provides a pretty robust level of detail on analysis that we've completed. The analysis would seem to show that the majority of the land development code's criteria for the PUD guidelines are met. And certainly on paper, fiscal analysis would also appear to demonstrate a positive economic value for the city. However, despite these high-level evaluations, when we focus in on some of the details of this type of development, there are some concerns that arise as a result of the impacts that this type of service would provide. Our experience shows that care facilities are high users of emergency medical services, and our data further show that we have seen a precipitous rise in the last few years in calls from nursing and assisted living centers here in our community. With this, we've also observed a pretty substantive rise in the calls from these centers that we would classify as non-emergent calls. Our evaluation of these conditions is concerning, and we would demonstrate, I think, that a meaningful portion of the ever-growing EMS call volume in our community is the result of the misuse of emergency medical services by nursing facilities in our community. Certainly, property owners have the right to the quiet and full enjoyment of their property, grounded, of course, in the lawful limitations imposed through the zoning process. With this, it should be noted that council has a standing priority of encouraging economic development in our community, that you have been promoting a business environment that stimulates our investment in our community. And I think we've demonstrated a track record through things like the changes in our land development code. And we certainly cannot deny that this change would facilitate a substantive initial investment in Xenia, and further that it would meet what has become a universal need in terms of additional bed space in this particular service delivery area. We see that not only in Xenia, but certainly throughout the Miami Valley region. Nonetheless, in my mind, this change would likely result in a substantive increase in our city's EMS call volume at a time when we are faced with what seems to be an overwhelming challenge as we try to meet a service need that we are frankly very just not capable of meeting presently. To be honest, we are not completely in consensus as a staff in terms of whether or not this is a net positive for the community, or whether or not to make a hard and fast recommendation. So you will see in your agenda report tonight that there isn't a firm recommendation. For me, as city manager this evening, I am in a position where I do have an opportunity to offer a little more narrative, and you know, it's my feeling that this is problematic for the city, primarily from a service delivery standpoint. We can demonstrate a positive economic impact, but I cannot suggest to you that that economic impact is enough for us to be able to provide resources to our fire division to offset what is a likely increase in call demand. We've spent a lot of time, as you well know, this summer and this fall, reaching out to nursing care facilities. Just spoke with the Greene County Sheriff tonight because we've seen a significant rise this year in the number of calls that we're receiving for medical treatment at our jail. And I said, Gene, look, something's got to give here because we're drowning in EMS calls. So again, while wanting to be a business-friendly community and wanting to invite investment into our community, each of these situations from a zoning perspective should be looked at on a case-by-case basis. And I do have some very serious concerns with making a change that would take us away from these single-family lots and transitioning toward a larger facility that undoubtedly would lend to a pretty significant increase in our call volume at some point in the not-too-distant future. So this evening, we are recommending that council take this into consideration. Tonight would just be an introduction of first reading. You would have to hold the public hearing and a subsequent vote at your December 30th meeting. So I've gone into a little more detail tonight because I will not be here for that meeting. And we can certainly, if you'd like, have any discussion this evening. If not, that would carry over to as part of your public hearing and consideration on December 30th.
Thank you very much. Would one of my colleagues care to introduce this, please?
Danette, what occurs if we don't, if the council does not introduce?
If council doesn't take any action at all, an introduction is simply so that we can proceed forward, have the public hearing. Anyone who's for or against then has the ability to come and speak to council, and then you can vote. Introduction doesn't mean there has to be passage.
Right.
You can always turn it down. If you take no action whatsoever, then you could be looking at a mandamus action to force you to take the
Right.
action that the land development code says that you need to.
Need to take, right, okay. I'll introduce.
Thank you. Introduced by Councilman Urschel.
Can we ask a couple of questions to the staff about this at this time?
Please feel free.
Brent, I know part of, as we're looking at our strategy to address the deficit with the EMS billing, we talk some about restructuring how we're going to do that billing towards the assisted living, nursing homes, rehab centers. And I know that hasn't come into effect yet, right? Is that going to be coming into the new year? Is that correct?
Yes, so later this evening, we will have a study session following the regular session. One of the 3 topics tonight is an update on that. We have prepared the administrative directive. I wanted to go over some of the provisions in that change with council because I want to make sure that you're fully aware of those changes and have some
Right.
perspective on the likely impacts, because the council moving into next year, I'm sure there will be some feedback from some folks in the public, if not some of these institutions, because there are going to be some substantive changes.
Right.
So that is one strategy that we're prepared at effective January 1st to implement. We've already implemented the new EMS billing vendor, and so we
Right.
would expect to see some positive changes there. We've held several meetings with essentially with the top 3 what we consider worst abusers, so to speak, from an institutional standpoint. With call volume, we've conducted meetings in conjunction with Kettering Health with those folks, and so begun to look at the data. I would say we've had, I think, a pretty positive response to this point. We'll see, the proof will be in the pudding if whether or not we can see some reduction there. And then, as I indicated, I just spoke with the sheriff earlier today, and we'll be setting up a meeting in January to talk about that. So we're taking a broad-ranging approach. But at this point, Councilman, my goal is to just curb the increase.
Right.
I just am not sure that we're going to see a huge decrease with these efforts. But if we can at least contain this, we just simply have no choice. We don't have the resources to continue to bring more staff members on board, to add more medic units. Medic 31 and Medic 32, our 2 frontline medics, are the 2 busiest medics in Greene County.
Mm-hmm.
That's busier than any medic in Fairborn, any medic in Beaver Creek, any medic in any jurisdiction in the county.
Mm-hmm.
These are extremely troubling and concerning, numbers that we deal with. And we look at a jurisdiction like Beaver Creek, they've got twice as many people on staff as we do at any given shift.
Mm-hmm.
So we're dealing with a higher call volume with fewer people, and we're not seeing the revenue coming in to help offset those expenses.
Right. Was this economic analysis based upon the current revenue recovery?
Yeah, we used what we felt was the best total in terms of what is collectible for an EMS run.
Right, under the current structure.
Correct, right?
Yeah, but it probably will not change a whole lot because in most of these cases, you're dealing with Medicare, Medicaid, and so the difference between what we're charging and those Medicare, Medicaid rates really isn't going to be impacted by these changes that we're undertaking. So I think those numbers are going to be pretty consistent even under the new policy.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll hold some questions on that till we have the working session, because I thought we were going to be pursuing some additional billing against the actual agencies
Yeah,
versus
well, so-
individuals, or the potential of doing that, so.
Yeah, so there are some additional, what I would call graduated iterative steps in terms of that billing structure
Right.
that with the change January 1 that we'd be instituting. It's not necessarily increasing the billable amount, but it's adding additional billing points for services that we're currently not billing for.
Right.
Which would include billing some of the institutions
Right.
on some of these cases.
Right,
I
right.
also really want to stress with this, there is a substantial capital investment that's being made that's adding to tax base. I think my concern rests with the service delivery.
Right.
But in fairness for council and your consideration, there's an investment here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want it to come across as though, I think that their operation is going to be delinquent in their service delivery or that they're not making an investment. They clearly are. And there clearly is demand in the region for these services. It's just that we have seen, I think, maybe more than our fair share of a collection of services in our community.
Right,
And we can empirically demonstrate that that has had an adverse effect on our service delivery.
Right. And one last question. Brian, I think I talked to you about this earlier today, but had the developer come to us as a city to look at viable locations for this? Was this principally their initiative, having done this with the developer, and we're responding back to that without much discussion with them about, in terms of locations?
They didn't ask us about other, excuse me, they did not ask us about other locations. They simply came to us interested in the site.
Okay, all right, great, all right, thank you.
Councilman?
I don't have any questions for you.
Oh.
Thanks. Brent, we had an extended conversation today, but I just want for the public, EMS, we've got a problem, a big problem. Matter of fact, we're having a special session at 7 o'clock. Do you know how many calls there was at the neighboring Elmcroft this year?
Yeah, Elmcroft, in terms of the number of beds, is a similar sized facility. Through November of this year, I believe we had 160 some calls, and that was, I think, 20 or more calls than they had all of 2018. So we still have December yet to go. They are one of our top users of service, and we've seen, again, some pretty substantive increase. But it's not just with that facility, certainly the other ones as well.
But the developer estimated 60 calls, and this is going to be at least 160 calls, in my estimation. If you compare it to Elmcroft, the developer did estimate 60 calls.
Correct, and for our analysis, we used 120, which is a little closer to our experience. Over a sample period of the last 3 years, similar facilities like this are trending definitely higher. Now, again, we want to stress it's a different management company, different development company that's going to be responsible for this new facility. So it isn't necessarily fair to say that, they're definitely going to have the same approach from a liability standpoint or liability management standpoint. But we do see similar call volume with these types of facilities. And we should also draw a distinction. Different facilities have different needs. If you are an assisted living facility, there's a certain service provision. If you're a nursing home, there's a certain service provision. There are licensing considerations that are different. If you are a rehabilitation center, that to me, for our staff, would be more advantageous. I think it's been suggested that part of this facility's operation would be nursing center, and part of it would be rehabilitation. Certainly rehabilitation is better because it's a shorter term, there's professional staff associated with it, but it's shorter term. Nursing homes tend to be longer term and in our experience tend to have a lot more issues.
And I just want, to go on record. I've done my research on this, and I cannot support it. Say we get income tax revenue, property tax revenue. Bottom line is, if I'm reading this right, it'd be a $21,000 plus to the city based on 120 calls, which, based on, 120 calls. So it's not economically, I mean, we're stewards of the taxpayer dollar. I mean, when you hear there'll be 100 jobs, a new facility, you know, you kind of get excited until you look, you dig into it, and the public needs to know, we have a serious EMS call volume. Some people might say, well, hire more. No, we don't have the budget to hire more firefighters. I mean, if this was producing $1 million, maybe, but this is based on 30 single-family homes, 21,000. If they develop 61 single, which is not going to happen, that would be 42,000. So I think the public needs to know this is not economical, I think, as far as, I'm just my one vote here. But I don't think it's a good thing. Thank you.
If it was anything but, I shouldn't say that, let me rephrase that. I think this issue right now, timing-wise, is particularly poignant for us because we've had so much discussion about this EMS call volume issue this year. And I'd love to come back to you tonight and report that with the steps that we've taken already, we're seeing this tremendous reduction. But I just, you know, as I said, we're trying to contain the issue. And I do think I would be doing disservice if I sat here and said I wasn't concerned about adding to the likely call volume when the nature of that right now is such a major problem for us.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Councilman?
Mr. President. I'd agree with Councilman Lauterbach. I think 60 was way low estimate. 120 is probably very conservative, and I would think that would be higher. My concern is the existing nursing homes that we have, their census is low, their staffing is low. And you throw another nursing home in our area that's going to pull even more clients and residents out of those nursing homes, we're going to look at a lot of empty buildings. And I know one of them that's right on Monroe that hasn't been filled in years. And then those facilities are going to be financially struggling because their census is low. They're going to have less staff, and boom, more residents hit the floor. So there's going to be even more call volume, and this is like a circle. This isn't just a one and done type thing. And, you know, wow, I wasn't on my phone when you were talking, but I did a Google search on nursing homes in Xenia, and it's a full screen, and I'm scrolling down, and that list just keeps going. Elmcroft, Hospitality, Harmony, Legacy, Hillside, Right Cycle Estates, Greenwood Manor. I mean, enough's enough. We don't need any more, and I know that's cold, and everybody on this council wants jobs and businesses, but you know, I remember, I think it was like 10 or 12 years ago when there was a payday loan check into cash crisis. They were popping up on every street corner, and the city had to say, this is before my time, but I think, Dale, you were serving on that. You guys said no more, and I think that's kind of where we're at here. We'd love to have it, but we can't service those residents that are here. So I think it's fair to say that it's just not the right time. And, yeah, I'd love to have a beautiful building, but I think it's just a strain on our services. And it's kind of sad that we have to kind of turn something down. Thank you.
Any other comments, please? I would concur with the thoughts offered by all so far this evening. I won't prejudice my vote on the 30th, but at the present time, I am not inclined to support the issue as well. Moving to the next item on our new items agenda is an administrative motion approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $992,296.90. Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, Council President. This is again a fairly large schedule of bills. That's not atypical for this time of year as we're closing out a lot of projects. One of the major expenditures on this particular schedule of bills is for the payment for the coating of the water towers, which is a pretty significant expense. There's also some debt service on there from some upgrades and replacement of generators that we did a few years back, and a few other expenditures like the Rumpke refuse. It's always a significant expense. So again, realize that it is a pretty large sum, but this time of year, as we're closing out a lot of those projects, that's to be expected. So,
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, to pay our bills this evening?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by the mayor. Any discussion or question on our bills, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilman Urschel,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And one additional item on the agenda this evening, which is somewhat unusual after our schedule of bills, but we have an administrative motion, a referral of case PZC 2019-13 to council pursuant to section 269.05 of the codified ordinances, alternative equivalent review for a proposed accessory maintenance building for the Greene County Career Center, 769 US 68, filed by Sharp Conway Architects. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. As indicated in the title, this matter is a case referral from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Section 26905 of the codified ordinances provides the city council shall act in place of a city board or commission when, due to abstentions or absences, that board or commission is unable to produce a majority vote needed to take an action on a matter. Such a circumstance was encountered on December 5th of this year when Planning and Zoning Commission was asked to approve a request for alternative equivalent review for a proposed maintenance building at the Greene County Career Center's new campus. 4 of the 5 total members were present for the meeting. However, 2 members disclosed potential conflicts of interest and abstained from the vote on the matter. The remaining 2 members voted in favor of the request, but pursuant to our city charter, a minimum of 3 affirmative votes is required. Section 26905 provides that city council should intervene in such circumstances so that a definitive action can be taken and a decision rendered. The request in question involves a proposed 50-foot by 150-foot maintenance facility to be located at the rear of the main Greene County Career Center building. The maintenance building's corrugated metal siding and lack of windows facing US 35 and Union Road would fail to meet 3 of the city's existing architectural standards. However, the building will be relatively hidden from view and overshadowed by the scale of the main Greene County Career Center building, which does comply with the city's architectural standards. And if you've been out there, that is a substantial building. The Land Development Code offers alternative equivalent review for such situations where a proposed building does not meet the letter of the law, but provides alternative design strategies or circumstances that still meets the intent of the standards. Based on the code's approval criteria for the alternative equivalent review, staff does endorse the request as submitted. We recommend that council approve the administrative motion to authorize this item.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. Second, please.
Second?
Second by Councilman Lauterbach. Any discussion or question on this motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilman Urschel,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
I'm going to pass.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Engel,
Aye.
and back to
I'm going
Councilman
to
Smith.
abstain.
Abstain. All right. Motion carried.
Thank you. This time, we have an opportunity for appointed official reports and council comments. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. Just 2 items. First, if you've followed our social media and followed some of the regional news lately, you'll be aware that Xenia is one of 10 finalist communities for the Small Business Revolution. This is a promotional feature sponsored by the Deluxe Corporation in which a small community across the country is chosen to have investment in their small downtown and promotion in their small businesses. And we are thrilled to be among the 10 finalists. Xenia, Ohio, and one community from Minnesota are the only 2 in the Midwest. We're really thrilled to have this opportunity. Their production team was in Xenia this week, participated in meetings that were very, we thought, positive and promotional and productive. They interviewed a number of our small businesses, and they will go back and collaborate with their staff to determine the 5 finalist communities, which will be announced on January 14th. Immediately following that, there will be an online nationwide voting process. And if we are selected to be one of those 5 finalist communities, we are calling on not just the folks in our community, but in Greene County and the region and across the state to support our community in this endeavor. So this is a tremendous opportunity for a boost for our small businesses, a great marketing opportunity for our community. We're flashing some images here because we need our community to continue to promote by hashtag MyXenia, opportunities on Facebook and other social media platforms. Using that hashtag MyXenia moniker will connect any of those to the accounts that these production folks are watching. They want to know how much enthusiasm there is in our community to be a finalist for this. And so we want to prove to them how much we want this. And so we are really thrilled to see the involvement from our downtown community, from businesses around Xenia, just the positive commentaries that we've seen from all across Xenia. So we really appreciate that, and we'll keep the community and council informed as we move forward. Second, finally, I just want to remind folks that we do have holiday closings coming up before our next meeting. We will officially be closed for Christmas December 23rd through the 25th, and of course for New Year's on January 1st. And so we ask for folks to plan around that accordingly. And as always, we wish folks a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Anything for our city manager this evening, please?
Can I just tag on to that it was 6,000 nominations, and we are in the top 10 out of 6,000. So I think people need to understand this is not a small nod, this is a huge nod. So just keep that in mind as you're doing your hashtags. We are in the top 10 of 6,000.
Thank you. Mr. Finance Director,
I have nothing else this evening.
anything for our Finance Director, please? Madam Law Director.
I have one item I emailed you about this afternoon. As you know, our current part-time prosecutor, Mr. Lewis, will be assuming the judgeship on January 1st. Mr. Lewis has served as part-time prosecutor for Xenia and Bellbrook. Bellbrook contracts with the City Forest Services for a number of years. Mr. Lewis has also had a private contract with Greene County, where he was providing prosecutor services for county agencies as well. As of January 1st, as full-time judge, he will not be able to provide those services to Greene County either. We were able to partner with Greene County. Greene County is going to contract with the city. Between the amounts that we were currently paying for a part-time prosecutor, the contracts with Bellbrook and with Greene County, we were able to transition that position from part-time to full-time at what we believe will be no additional cost to the city. I did the math, so I don't want to promise that until Ryan's checked my numbers. But we have offered the job to David Morrison. He's accepted. David is currently a part-time assistant prosecutor with Greene County. He's been there 5 years. He came very highly recommended from not only our police department, but other local police jurisdictions, which spoke to me very highly of his abilities and his character. So we look forward to him joining our team. We think with this change from part to full, we'll be able to increase our level of services to the public, to the court, and to law enforcement. And that we could do that at no additional cost to our taxpayers was just a huge win.
Thank you very much. Anything for our Law Director this evening, please? Thank you. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I know it's been mentioned this evening, but I certainly want to mention Mr. Rogers and Mr. Hughes, our public service employees who responded to the medical emergency of Mr. Scott, and wanted to thank them publicly for the efforts that they put in staying with him and helping him in that moment. So we are sorry to hear of his passing and offer our condolences to the Scott family. I just want to continue to echo what our city manager has already said. Please continue to hashtag MyXenia. I know for myself, everybody I'm talking to, both in Xenia and outside of Xenia, we're talking about it. It's a huge win for the whole region. So please share it with your friends, whether they live in town or not. I'm getting a little pushy about it. And I certainly want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And that's all I have. Oh, yes, and vote for One Bistro. If you haven't voted for One Bistro yet, please do that. They are just barely in second place. We can easily push them over the top to be the cafe of the year for the types of services that they're offering, the pay it forward method. And so we want to continue to vote for them. If you're on Facebook, they're putting the link every day. Please vote every day. If you have multiple email addresses, I'm just saying maybe you could vote multiple times a day. I'm just saying.
Perhaps the
We
only
want
time
to
you'll hear from this council to vote early and vote often.
This isn't Chicago.
We want to win. We want it bad. So please keep voting. Please keep.
dead to vote.
I'm just saying.
This is in Chicago.
Please keep voting. We have a lot of positive momentum, and we just need to push this through. It's very exciting. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lauterbach.
just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Councilman Smith?
Same thing, thank you.
Councilman Urschel?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go to one of the homeless camps that the city cleared out this last month underneath one of the bridges on the bike path. And so anyways, kudos to the city employees. That's never an easy thing to have to participate in and do. Spoke to Gabe, who's one of our longtime homeless residents, and had a really interesting conversation with him. Gabe's perspective on Xenia, he says, you know, this is a recovery city, and that's true. There's a lot of opportunity for folks if they want to recover to do that. But what Gabe was also saying is, I'm not about recovery, but I still want to stay here. And so, you know, we spoke some last week, and Madam Law Director, you weren't here. I made a request that.
Yes, I did read the minutes.
Good.
Just so you know, the city manager knows, I've been researching everything I can get my hands on, reading every case I can find.
Great. I've been over about 40 myself, so maybe over Christmas break, we can combine some notes on those.
We have had discussions and continue to have discussions as city staff about the best way to handle that.
Yeah. I really believe that this needs to be a two-pronged approach. One is that for those that desperately need help and are willing to get help, that either through the private or public process, we come alongside of them. But for folks that desperately need help and have made a decision they don't want help, but they still want to stay in our community and operate under their own rules, that we need to make this a very hard place for them to be able to operate that way. And so understand there may be a spectrum of things we can do. The city's only one portion of that process, obviously. But I guess I would just really encourage those of you who are going to be on council next spring, because it's going to take a while to research this, that we need to help our law enforcement folks. And obviously, it's just one part of that. But we need to equip them as much as we can to give them the tools to encourage people to either move on to recovery or move out. Because living in our community and making a decision not to do that should not be a viable approach. And at least we need to be encouraging them as hard one way as the other there. So there's a good article today, if you haven't seen it, in the Xenia Daily Gazette about homelessness from one of the contributing editors. And I think I think some of the folks who are involved with the recovery end of things and the housing and homeless, some folks are a little bit frustrated by the article, but I wasn't. I think it was a great set of comments. The issue is, I think we need to have an integrated strategy in our municipality that calls together all the both the public and the private folks that are dealing with this, so we all know what the strategy is, and we're all behind it, and that includes from a law enforcement perspective as well too. And so I'm hoping that some of the work we can do with the USDA coming next spring through their Prosperity Council initiative, and someplace we can pull folks together and get to some agreement as to what that strategy ought to be, because I don't believe we have that right now. I think we have a lot of very well-intentioned folks, but we don't have a common consensus as to what that strategy needs to be, and without that, we're just not going to be able to address this. So anyways, looking forward to that in the spring as well. But I really believe, once again, a very key component of that is going to be beefing up our municipal code to address the anti-loitering perspectives of that. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Councilman Dean?
Just Merry Christmas.
A second?
I'm sorry, I forgot. I wanted to specifically congratulate Ms. Jean Britton. She is the Senior Citizen of the Year. She was honored on Wednesday, so I wanted to congratulate her. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just echo the comments already shared that please vote for My Xenia. Please vote for One Bistro. Vote early, vote often. And
With
wishing
many email addresses.
and wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. With that, I'd seek a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach. Second, please.
I'll second, but how do we vote for One Bistro?
On their Facebook, they have a link every single day. That's
Okay.
And every day you can just click on the
It's on
link.
Facebook?
And then you click on the logo. And
Okay.
Yep,
All right,
very
thank
easy.
you.
Roll call, please.
Sorry.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We'll be taking